Chumash and Rashi, Torah portion of the week. We're the third book, the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. We're the third reading. Chapter 2, verse 7. We continue with offerings on the altar, on the outer altar, right, which we had animal offerings. Now we're dealing with what's called Korban Mincha, a grain offering, and different types of ways that those offerings could be made. Simple oil and water was the first one that we spoke about, and that the kohen would take a 3 fingers and put it onto the altar, putting it onto the altar, and it would be, consumed. Okay. And now we continue. The im minchas marcheshes. Now this is a different type of mincha. Mincha meaning a meal offering. Marcheshes is made in a deep pot. Karbanecha is your offering. Soilis b'shemen. So soilis is fine flour, b'shemen in oil. Ta'aseh. You should make it. So Rashi now picks up on the new word. Marcheshes, right? In verse 7 in Rashi. Marchesh is a deep pan. Kli, it's a vessel. It's an implement. It's a cooking ware. Shahaya b'mikdash. It was used in the holy temple. Omuk. It was deep, like a deep pot that you would use. Amuka, because it's deep. Shamnat sover. The oil gathered to a considerable depth. Veina or sefer, and the fire did not burn it. We had yesterday a different kind of offering. It was a more like a frying pan, but a very what's the word? Very slight frying pan. That you put some oil in there, not that much. That what you put in there of the flour that went in there, it was scalded it and made a kind of hard crust, created it like a hard crust from it, right? This one, on the other hand, was a deep with lots of oil. So then it got it didn't make just a hard crust, but it baked it or cooked it through and through, right? So therefore the fire did not burn it as it did again in the shallow pan. The fikach, therefore, the meal offerings are made in it are like a crepe. Called averachu al yedei mashke. For anything that is soft because of the liquid absorbed in it, nira kereichesh umenanea. See, seems like it is creeping and moving. In other words, the oil in such a batter gives it resilient quality and causes it to move in a manner similar to creeping when you press it with fingers. So in other words, it's saturated with oil, right? That's what it is. So and that's what it means over here. It's saturated with oil that when you squeeze it, right, oil moves. Right, as opposed to the other one was more like what's it called when you put something quickly on the pan and you thank you. Rena will probably text you or tell her that because she knows when something's coming. Okay, so what's it called when you put something quickly on the frying pan? Sear it. You're searing the steak, right? So, right. In other words, it's like hardening the outside. That was the other one. This one was full of oil, so now, it becomes saturated with oil. That's the difference between this one and what we spoke about yesterday. Ve'evesa is a mincha, and you will bring this meal offering, mincha the meal, asher yaseh, that he will make me'ela from these la Hashem, to God, right? From these, in other words, the different types that we spoke about, right? V'hikriva ela kohen, and you should bring it close to, near to the kohen, right? V'gisha ela mizbeach, and he will bring it close to the altar. In other words, can be your own offering, but in order to bring it to the altar, you have to give it to the kohen, right, to the priest. Rashi and 8, asher yaseh me'ela, that you will prepare from these, echad min aminim halalu, from these various varieties, right? That we spoke about yesterday and now today. The Yikriva, and he shall bring it, Balei Ela Kohen, the owner of this offering, right? It's an owner of the offering, should bring it to the Kohen. The Gisha, bring it close. The Kohen will bring it close. Elamizbeach, to the altar. Megia Laker and Dremis Maravi Shal Mizbeach. He touches it on the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach. The south is the further corner. Yeah. And western is more towards the holies, and the Holy of Holies is in the west, right? The entrance is in the east. So this is kind of, yeah. Okay, don't have the picture here. All right, moving right along. Verse number 9. The Herim HaKohen is a mincha, and the Kohen will lift up the mincha, mina mincha, from the meal offering, as askarasa, its reminder. Askarasa means a reminder, memorial, if you will, from the word zachor, which means to remember, right? This Shabbos is Parsha Zachor, remembering Amalek, right? Before Purim, we remember Amalek. V'higter mizbecha, and it shall go up and smoke on the altar. Ishe, a fire offering. Reyach nichayach, a pleasing fragrance, la Hashem, to God. Rashi, esas karasa, hi akaimitz. What is the reminder? What is the memorial? It is the three fingers that the Kohen takes. That we learned yesterday, right? He takes the three fingers and puts it on that fistful. I don't know why it's called a fistful. It's not really a fistful. It's three fingerful, right, of the mixture, and putting it onto the altar. But I said it's 12 ounces of just flour, and then there's oil, right, in different manners. Right, so the leftover mina mincha la'Aaron levana belongs to Aaron and his sons. Kodesh kadoshim mishe Hashem. It is holy of holies, a fire offering of Hashem. Right. In other words, they remember, they don't get any. They don't have land to grow any produce. Right. So this is something that belongs to them. 11. Any meal offering, all meal offerings that you will bring as an offering, as a sacrifice to Hashem, don't make it chametz. In other words, all of this stuff is Passover, stamp of approval. It's not chametz. Chametz means leavened. Right? It doesn't if you will, rise. In other words, it's not kept for 18 minutes that it becomes leavened bread. Ferments. Thank you. Yes. Why? For anything that is seor, that is leavened, or anything that is dvash, anything that has a leavening agent to it, or has dvash, honey, meaning a sweetener, right, cannot be put onto the altar of God. Lo yisaktiru. Do not fire offering. Don't put it up in smoke on the altar. Okay? Interesting. Chol dvash, Rashi. Kol mesikos pri kru yadvash. Dvash is translated as honey over here, but it means any sweet fruit extract is called honey. Okay? 12. Korban reishis. However, a korban reishis means a first fruit offering. Takribo isam lashem. You shall offer them, bring them close, and offer them to God. But they shall not go on the altar as a pleasing fragrance to Hashem. So this is the mitzvah bringing the first fruits, right? So they don't go on the altar, but they are brought to Jerusalem, the first fruits, right? Rashi in number 12. We're all good? Following? Amazing. Korban reishis takriva oisam. It shall be a first fruit offering. Ma yesh l'chalahavi minasora minadvash. What can you bring from the leavening and from the honey? In other words, we just finished saying in the previous verse that you can't bring anything that's leavening or sweet, right? But what could you then? Then this verse is coming to make an exception that there is something you could bring. Korban reishis, that's the first fruit offering, which includes shtei alechem shelatzeres, which includes the 2 breads on Shavuos, haboim in asor, that comes from leavening. So the only time that you bring leavening is Shavuos, when you bring 2 breads. The rest of the year, everything is Pesachdik. The lechem apanim, the showbread, everything that's in the Holy Temple was Pesachdik. Except for the Shtei Alechem, because there it says clearly that you should break it leavened. You should bake it leavened. Ubikurim minadvash, and likewise, the second thing that is, right, sweetener, we said anything sweet, right? First fruits, you bring from honey, meaning the first fruits, figs and dates, from which honey can be made, right? No, but you bring it. We just said you don't sacrifice it. The verse just said that you don't put it on the altar, but it is an offering. Don't confuse, right? We just said no offering. Now we're putting in a royal but, right? But these 2 things, the 2 breads on Shavuos and the first fruits that have figs and dates that honey are made from. Clear? Good morning, good morning. 13. All offerings, minchas, that are meal offerings, that are your meal offerings, b'melech timlach, with salt you shall, b'melech timlach. So like the word, it's with salt you shall salt. Salt. You have to put salt on the mincha. Has to be salted. And do not. Actually, it says the actual word is to destroy the salt, right? Meaning, don't leave it out. Don't leave out the salt. Don't leave out the salt. Warning, thin sheet of ice going down. We just said don't leave out the salt. Put salt out. Can you put a little salt before you go? I'll take a cupful and, Okay. Well, just in time. We just said don't leave out the salt. That's what the verse says here. Exactly. But if you put some salt on the top, it says, okay, maybe it needs more. Maybe, okay, whatever. Afterwards, we'll see. Thank you. Actually, it's going to melt a bit, it's going to melt soon. Okay, so it's going to melt. Okay.
The salt is not one of the 4 elements. earth,
No.
fire.
No, it's not.
It got jealous or something like
No,
that?
no. Let's learn what we're learning. Let's not go off tangent, okay? Okay. Even I just went off tangent in salt. He asked about salt, and here we're in the verse speaking. In the verse, we're speaking about salt right in this minute. Don't leave out the salt. Bris elakecha. It is a covenant of your God. Mi'al minchoscha, that is on your meal offering. Al kol karbanecha, al karbancha, on all of your offerings. Takriv melach, you shall offer with salt. Rashi, melech bris, a salt of God's covenant. Shabris krusa lamelech, because the covenant was made with salt. Shesi made Bereshis from 6 days of creation. For the lower earthly waters were promised that they should be offered on the altar. V'melech with salt, and the outpouring and the pouring of water on the altar for Sukkot. So the earthly waters that are salty waters, right? The oceans, right? So by 6 days of creation, they were said that there will be offered on, right? Those waters will be offered on the altar. How so? The salt from it. And also water will be on it on Sukkot. Actual water. Interesting. Al kol karboncha, on all of your offerings. Al elas behema v'oif. This, in other words, till now we spoke about that your mincha should be your meal offering, right? That is made from wheat. Now the verse it says also on every oil offering that is of livestock and fowl also. The parts burnt on the altar, all of them are consecrated with salt. They all use salt. That's why we use salt when we make hamotzi, because our table is like an altar. It's like the altar of God today. We don't have an altar. It's the altar of God is our table, what we eat. And therefore, when we make hamotzi, we dip in salt. Right? Because the altar, everything was used with salt. Verse number 14, and when you will bring a first meal offering of first grains to Hashem, Aviv Koli, they should be the first grain. I'd say, so Aviv means when it ripens. It's also, when it ripens. Koli be'esh, parched over the fire. Gerish Carmel, kernels that are full in their husks. Takriv as minchas bikurecha, you shall offer your first grains. Let's see Rashi. Im takriv. We're now in 14. When you bring im takriv, the word im over here means when. For this offering is not optional, because im usually means if, right? If you will bring, which means it's optional. So Rashi is saying, no, this is not an optional offering. So it's not if you will bring, it's when you will bring. Because we're speaking here about the meal offering of the oimer.
Beautiful.
No,
Torah?
the Torah is saying this. The Torah is saying this. Why would it be rabbinical? Why are you guessing? I don't understand. We're learning from Torah now, so it would be a Torah law, right? If we were learning in Rambam, so then might be a question. If you didn't bring a verse to prove something from the verse, so then you might say it's rabbinic. But we're learning in Chumash, so of course it's biblical law. I mean, generally speaking, unless Rashi is making an exactingness in the words, it would be otherwise. Right? Okay, so it's not an option because we're speaking about over here a meal offering of the Omer, Shu Chayva, which is an obligation. Likewise, we see the word im when the children of Israel will have the yovel, meaning the Jubilee year. It's not if they will have it, it's when they will have it, because the Jubilee year is going to come, whether you like it or not, right? So likewise over here. Minchas bikurim, it's a meal offering of first fruits. Minchas ha'omer akasu medaber. The verse is speaking about meal offering of the omer. Shehi ba ba'aviv. It comes when it's nearly ripe. Bishas bishul latvua, the ripening of the crop. And this is coming from barley, right? This is Pesach time, right? Like that's when we count the Omer, second night of Pesach. We start counting the Omer. Why is it called Omer? Because Omer means this, what we're talking about over here, a meal offering of barley as the first ripening of the grains. Barley ripens before wheat does. Wheat is brought Shavuos. Barley is brought Pesach. Okay, it says here the word aviv, which we said meant ripening of the barley. Called aviv. He's just proving now that this is speaking about barley over here because the verse didn't say barley, right? And it says also earlier in Exodus by the plague of hail. Also said there it said Asaira Aviv, which means barley that's nearly ripened by the plague of hail that it was that it destroyed it. So he's just showing that there we see clearly that it means barley, even though here the word barley is not mentioned, but that's the reference. Okay, the ripening of the barley. That is the mincha offering, the meal offering. Meal meaning, but this you understand, a meal is made with bread, right? It's bread. I mean, it's Pesach dika bread, like as matzah is called bread. Koli ba'esh, parched over fire. Shemiyab shinoisa alawar. You dry it over the fire. Ba'abuv shel kaloim, in a grain roaster cylinder. You put it into the cylinder, this barley. You put fire underneath it. It dries it out, right? But otherwise, otherwise it cannot be ground in a mill, because it is too moist. So you have to dry out the barley, then you could grind it and make flour from it. Gerish Carmel, ground from plump kernels. Grusa ba'idalecha. You ground it while it's still moist. Now that you dried it out, but it still has some kind of moisture left in it, I guess. It's parched over the fire, but it retains some of the moisture, right? Not completely. In other words, the verse is telling us that it shouldn't be completely dried out. Then you would ground it. Gerish, ground. Lashon shvira tchina. It's an expression, gerish is a breaking and grinding. Geisa b'rechaim shel groises. You crush it in a ground in a grinder mill. Kamay b'yagres b'chotzer. Similar idea, similar words that you. He broke his teeth with gravel because it was hard to grind. Okay. Caramel, plump kernels. B'oidakar mole. While the pillow is full. In other words, when the stalks are full of ripe kernels, they resemble a full pillow. Shatvu alecha, that the crop is moist. Umalea be'koshin shalah, that's full of its spikes. Alkei nikroim mililim karmel. And this is why it's called, why the kernels are called Carmel. A plump kernel in their husks. Okay. And the Sata Aleha Shemen, and she'll place upon it. So now after you've ground the barley, right, you place upon it shemen, oil, Samta Aleha Levainen, and then place on it frankincense. Minchahi, it is a meal offering. Frankincense is on a part of it, right? Not the whole thing mixed together, like we learned yesterday, right? Vihiktir akoyin is askarasa, and akoyin shall then hiktir, make it go up and cause it to go up in smoke, meaning put it on the altar, it gets burnt up completely. The three fingers pulls, right? Es haskarasa, its remembrance. Migirsa mishamna al kol levanoisa isha Hashem, to make it go from the from the coarse meal, from its oil, with all of the frankincense.
This time it's together.
Yeah, here it's this is different than what we had before. Yeah, because now all of the frankincense, it looks like it's all going up Ishel Hashem, a fire offering to God. Okay, let's see if we have something here from there. The Rebbe give us. Okay, so we had a verse 13, right? The salt one, right? Oh, so we said there in verse 13, right? And you shall bring salt on every meal offering, sacrifices with salt. You shouldn't omit any salt, right? That's when we were told we needed to put salt on the stairs. That's our altar here. Right? Salt for God's covenant that is being placed on the meal offerings. You shall offer salt on all your sacrifices, right? So the Rebbe is quoting from Rabbeinu Bachaya that the covenant that was made with salt in the 6 days of creation, that there was a promise to the lower waters, that you would bring salt. I mean, right, we mentioned that previously, that Rashi, and Rashi's quoting also, but the Medrash says the lower waters, and this is what David was referring to earlier. It's a medrash that says that the lower waters were crying waters. Why? Because on the second day of creation, God divided the water. Everything was water on the first day, right? Everything was like a soup mix in the first day. Second day, God divided between the higher waters and the lower waters. There was now a sky, a heaven, right? That divided between the waters, right? One was higher, prominent, and one was lower, not prominent, right? That's why they cried the lower waters. They cried, right? Guess what? They cried. What did they cry? They cried bitter tears, salty tears of water. Right? They cried. I mean, figuratively speaking, right? So the water said, "Oh, woe is us that we don't have the merit to go up to heaven, to be close to our Creator. We're the lowly waters down here. There's heavenly waters up there. The waters up there, by the way, are not physical waters, right? As we have them down here in the oceans and whatnot. So God said, because I have created you for my honor, you will in the future be brought on the altar with salt. So the salt will be taken out of you, desanalize, that's how you pronounce it, right? Desanalization, right? Taking the salt out of the water. So you take the salt out of the water and now you're using it. They do that for drinking water. But here we're doing it so we can put it on the altar of God, right? So that's, remember, so that's the first part was in Rashi, but the second part of the actual Midrash, Rashi doesn't bring down. So the Rebbe says we can explain that the fixing of the fixing for the waters, the lower waters, is specifically through the salt of the sacrifices. Now, this salt is only an element of the water, right? It's not, you wouldn't even call it the main element of the water. So how are you fixing it through the salt and not through the water itself? Right? The waters feel left out. There's heavenly waters that are close to the Creator and earthly waters that are removed from the Creator. So using the salt is like an aspect of it, but not it. It's not the water of it. So why specifically in such a manner will that fix their sense of distance? Right? Because the ultimate purpose of sacrifices is in order to ascend and to exalt a material thing that should go up as an offering and to bring it in a unity with godliness. And the power to elevate this is from adding salt to it, right? By adding salt to it. The root source of water, the lower waters, and therefore the crying and the desire of the lower waters to ascend and to come close to the Creator is the fact, in other words, that desire of the water is what gives it the power in the physical to ascend and to help ascend the material things down here in order that they should be united with godliness. So, for example, when you bring a wicked person to do tshuva, right? So if someone's wicked and then they do tshuva, right? Before that, they did tshuva. So, they have this desire to come close, and that brings them to do tshuva. So likewise over here, the lower waters, they were distant from godliness, and nonetheless, they didn't feel bad for themselves, meaning it brought them to desire to be exalted, uplifted, and that they have in their therefore that gives them the power that they can uplift the material of this world. Not clear what it means specifically, the salt. Anyways. Okay. Yesterday we had a verse, Nefesh Isakriv Korban Mincha. When a person will bring an offering of a mincha offering. So Korban Mincha. So a mincha, we translate as a meal offering, right? But the Midrash says, interesting, that on the words Korban Mincha, it teaches us that since it says the word Korban, Adam Kisakriv Korban, a person, like, so, there's no punctuation in Torah, but when a person will bring an offering, and you put a period there, right? Again, Torah doesn't have it, but when you can, so, because it says the next word is mincha, so it's a meal offering, but you don't have to read it. You can read it also when you bring an offering, meaning any offering. From here, we learned that an individual, because it says here nefesh, meaning a person, an individual, can bring an offering. The offering can bring, in other words, you can bring an offering of wine, you can bring an offering, even wood, right, which is used on the altar. Right. So the Midrash asked, can we do that? Yes, because it says when you bring an offering meaning any kind of offering, even if it's just wood. Right. So the Rebbe says, well, to say that you can bring an offering of wine for a libation or oil, okay, that makes sense because those are things that are used, right? That's part of the offering, that you have wine and you have. Right? Okay. It's okay, David, take a seat. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. But how could we think that the word carbon, which means a sacrifice, that you could bring wood as a offering? when wood is just used on the altar to burn whatever you're offering. It's what's called machshiri korban. It is a preparation for the offering, but it's not an offering itself. So why would the Midrash say that? So we could explain this in a deeper manner, according to Chassidus, not according to simple meaning, right? That this is the point over here. Because the wood is not considered literally an offering, right? Therefore, it is, the term offering could be used. What does that mean? How do we understand that? So the Ramban teaches us, Nachmanides, that when a person brings an offering on the altar, you should think that really I should be on the altar. I'm the one who should be offered. It should be me, right? But God, in his kindness, says, no, exchange the animal instead of me, right? Which means my blood, and so on, befitting to be spilled. But God took an exchange. Therefore, I have to think that when I bring the offering, that it's really me spiritually on the altar, right? I'm giving myself to God. That's what the thought should be, right? From here we learn that there's different ways that you can give yourself to God. You can give yourself to God, like in some sacrifices, you're just giving a part of the animal, right? A part of it. So, for example, if I'm giving a sin offering, so then what's going to be my feeling that I'm going to feel about sin? My sin. If I'm giving a korban toida, a thanksgiving offering, then it's about my thanksgiving, which all means I'm offering my thanksgiving or my sin, right, on the altar of Hashem. It's a specific quality of me that I'm bringing as an offering, right, in the general offerings, right? But together with this specific thing that I'm offering, there is something that is all-encompassing. What's all-encompassing? It's not something specific. What is that? I'm giving my complete being over to God. Not a quality of me, right? So when I sin, so I sinned with my thoughts. So, okay, or whatever. I sinned with not my thoughts. I ate something that wasn't kosher. So now you're bringing an offering. You did that inadvertently. So that's what you're offering on the altar, that particular thing. As the Ramban says, you have to see yourself there. Why are you bringing the sin offering? Well, you ate something not kosher, so you're bringing, right? That's a specific thing. But then there's something that's a general thing. That I'm giving me, myself, and I over to Hashem, period. Not a specific quality, not a specific thing that needs fixing, but my whole being, because my whole being is, self-absorbed. I'm putting that on the altar of Hashem. I'm there for you, God, entirely. Where is that expressed? With the wood. Because the wood is part of all offerings, right? And it further expresses because the wood itself is not literally an offering. It's only a preparation for the offering, which means exactly, I'm a conduit for something more than me. So I'm giving myself over more than me. When you bring a sin offering, so it's about me. I sinned. I got to bring, I feel bad. I feel disconnected and I want to fix that and I want to be in good terms. But that's all about me. It can be all about me, right? And also Thanksgiving can all be about me. But when you're giving the wood, it's not even really an offering, right? It's only preparing for the offering. But yet in every offering, there is that. In other words, it's not about me. The whole point of ultimately the offering on the altar is that it's not about me. It's about me offering myself to God, period. All of me, not a quality in me that I want to fix in order that I should, be in God's favor, right? No, total given over. That's what it. Okay, I'm going to do Tanya now. Thank you for joining, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.